So now in today's lesson we are going to look at simple present tense using active and passive. I hope you are with me. So in affirmative, look at the formula. Affirmative under passive, how do you formulate it? Subject plus base form of verb or third person singular form plus what? Object. That's the formula under what? Active. But in passive, how do you formulate it? Subject plus is or am or are plus past participle form of the main verb plus what? By plus object. But please don't forget the object here. In affirmative we have object at the last, right? Yes. But in passive that object functions as subject. Is that understood? Yes. And the object in passive we mean is the subject of what? Active. We are coming to see it from the example given below. Then in negative, how do you formulate it? Subject plus don't or doesn't. After you use don't or doesn't, then you now move to what? Plus base form of the verb plus what? Object. That is in what? In active. But in passive, how do you formulate it? Subject plus isn't or am not or aren't plus what? Past participle form of the member. When we say member, mean any verb that you are given. You are going to the what? Past participle form of it, isn't it? So past participle form of the member plus by plus object. That's for negative. But for question, how do you formulate it? In active, we begin with do or does plus subject plus base form of verb plus what? Object. But for passive, how do you formulate it? We use is or am or are plus subject plus past participle form of the main verb plus by plus object. So this is the formula. It's the formula that we want you to go home and memorize it. So look at the example given. Here we have this. This is a table. Anything that is here is in active, and anything that is here is in what? Passive. When you see plus, we mean what? Affirmative. When you see minus, means what? Negative. When you see this question mark symbol, we mean what? Question. So here we have he calls me. He is our subject, right? Calls is our verb. Me is our what? Object. So this is active voice. So now we want to change it to what? Passive. So look at it. I, as I told you earlier, the subject of what? Passive, meaning is the object of what? Is the object of what? Active. Care has to be taken. So here we said I. Why do we begin with I? Because here our object is what? Me in active, right? But in passive it will become our subject. So we know that. So then we now look at our formula. So after subject, we know our subject now is what? I. What is next? Is or am or are. This I goes with what? Am. You see, we use am, right? So then you now look at your verb. This is your verb. Calls. So you now go to the what? Past participle form of the verb. What is the past participle of this main verb? Called. So you see, we use called. After that, then we say plus what? By. You see our by, we introduce by, right? So here, in active, our subject is what? He. But in passive, it will become our object. Do you understand? We now say, I am called by him. This is for this. I hope you are with me. So then let's move to negative. Negative, it should be he doesn't, not he does. He doesn't call me. Please correct it. Okay. He doesn't call me. Why should we use he doesn't? Already, you know, this he is our singular subject and this course is singular verb, right? So we can say he doesn't. After writing doesn't, we now remove the s and add what? Call. Because we said in negative, subject plus don't or doesn't plus base form, meaning that you don't use the third person singular form. Is that understood? So we can say he doesn't call me. This is active. So in passive, look at the formula. Subject plus isn't or am, not or and plus PPB, first participle of the main verb plus by plus object, right? So we know. So now, already you know your subject, you know your verb, and you know your object, right? So you now begin with I as well. You know I goes with what? Am. You say am, then not. Called by him. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
It's very simple. So then in question, how do you formulate question? Let's look at the formula again. In active, we say we begin with do orders plus subject plus base form of the verb plus what? Object. So it's what we do here. We said, does he call me? Why do we begin with does? Because this he is singular. And in singular, we begin with does in question, especially in what? In active. And when the subject is plural, we begin with what? Do. Isn't it? So, but look at the formula in passive. In passive, we begin with is or am or are plus subject plus past participle form of the main verb plus by plus what? Object. So already we know our what? Our subject here, right? Here in passive, subject is what? He. The verb is called and object is me, right? So here we begin with am, since you know our what? Subject. You should know your subject before you start writing what is or am or are. So you can say, am I called by him? I hope you are understanding the differences.
Yes.
So this is number one. So number two, I saw her. I see her, because we say simple present, right? I see her. I is our subject, see is our verb, her is our object, but in what? In active. So now we are moving to passive. Here we said her as object, right? So in passive she will become subject. What is the subject of her? She. Already we know the pronoun, right? She, we are going to use is, right? So this member of C, we are taking it to what? Past participle form. We now say she is seen. After writing seen, we say plus by, we use by. So here, our subject is what? I. But in passive, it will become our object, me. I hope you are with me. Okay. Then, in negative, I don't see her. You know the agreement that we did with you. You know this C is plural, right? So don't is also plural. Doesn't is singular. So you can say I don't say I doesn't, okay? I don't see her in active. But in passive we can say she isn't. Do you know the reason why we say she isn't? You know the reason why I should tell you? Ajay, do you know the reason? So look at the reason now. Here, you know your subject, you know your verb and your object, right? So this her is your object in active. So in passive, you can use what? She. Isn't it? Look at it. Negative she. You are going to use isn't because she can go with what? Isn't. Then your main verb is see here, but you can use what? Seen here. Then by me. Okay. The last one. Under this, do I see her? This is question, right? Do I see her? You know the reason why we begin with do. Because this I is a singular, but it has what? Plural sense, right? So we say, do I see her? But in passive, okay, don't forget, already I explained that I is our subject, C is our verb, and then her is our object. So here we can say is, because you know the object, this is her. So we can write it first if you like. So you know we are beginning with what? Is. Is she seen by me? The next example, they give us. They give us. Subject, verb, object. They is our subject, give is our verb, us is our object, but in active, right? But in passive, you know, this as is object in active, right? But in passive, it will become subject. What is the subject of us? We. So we have we. We are going to use are, right?
Yes.
Then this give, we are going to PPP form of it, right? Given by them. You know, them here, you know, here we have they as what? Subject in active, but in passive, it will become our object. I hope you are understanding. So the next one, they don't give us, this is negative, right? This one we can say, we aren't given by them. You know the reasons. Since you know you are subject, you know you are verb, you know you are object. I hope you are with me. So here we say, do they give us? We now say, are we given by them? Why do we use are? Because here we see us, right? The subject is we. So we will begin with what? Are, not is or am, right? Given by them. So the last example, Aisha sells phones. Aisha is our subject, our verb is sells, our object is phones. So you know in passive, as I told you earlier, object becomes the subject in passive. So here we have phones as our subject. You see phones is plural, right? So that's why we use are. Do you understand? Phones are sold. This sold, you know, is a PPV form of what? Sells. Isn't it? Phones are sold by what? Aisha. So you see, Aisha here becomes our object in passive, but in active, Aisha is our what? Subject. I hope you are with me. So Aisha doesn't sell phones. This is negative in active. But in passive, you can say phones aren't sold by whom? Aisha. So in active, we say, does Aisha sell phones? Then in passive question, we now say, are phones sold by Aisha? So this is all about this lesson. Is that understood? Any question? Okay. The last one. Okay. Look at it. Aisha sells phones. Our subject here is Aisha. Sells is our verb. Phones is our what? Object. Right? So in passive, these phones, you see here in active you have phones as your what? Object. So it will become your what? Subject in what? In active. Not in passive, sorry. So phones, you see inflection of S. This is plural. That's why we use are. Just be looking at the formula. Subject follows is or am or are. So here we are going to use are, right? After that plus what? Past participle form of the member. What is your member here? Sells. So that's why you use what? Sold. Then after that plus what? Buy. You use buy. Then plus what? Aisha. Aisha is your what? Object in what? Passive. But here in active, Aisha is your what? Subject. Aisha doesn't sell phones. Why do we say Aisha doesn't sell phones? Because this Aisha here is singular. So we can say doesn't. We can't say don't. Aisha doesn't sell phones. Because look at the formula in what? In active. Subject plus don't or doesn't. After you use your don't or doesn't, you move to the base form. You see here we add s, right? Because it is what? Third person singular. So then the base form is what? Sell. Phones. So in active we now say phones aren't. Why do we say phones aren't? Because this phones is what? Plural, right? So look at it in negative. Subject plus isn't or am not or aren't. So that's why you say phones aren't sold by whom? Aisha. So then for active question we now say, does Aisha sell phones? That's question. But for active we say, for passive we say, are phones sold by Aisha? Is that understood now? Now. Any other question? Do you have question? Should I give you classwork now?